Hi everybody, I'm Helen Rain from Pacific Birds, and today I'm going to take you all on a super secret science bird quest. So we're going to find out all those secrets that our feathered friends have been hiding from us here on Hawaii. So quest number one, Hawaii is really isolated. We are 2,400 miles from the mainland and 1,400 miles from the next island chain. We're in the middle of nowhere. So we're going to look into how did the birds get here. So to do that, we have to go back in time, right to the very beginnings of the Hawaiian Islands. So you probably all know there was a big mantle plume of magma at the core of the earth coming up to the surface. And that's what formed the Hawaiian Islands. And the tectonic plates were moving along the top and popping out islands. Now, the oldest island in the main Hawaiian Islands is Kauai. That was formed 5 million years ago. And as you go down the chain, you get to the youngest island, Big Island, which is still got volcanic activity today. So here we are on these really isolated islands. And the birds are generally moving around mostly where the land is. So how did they get all the way here? Well, of course, they've got wings. So some of the seabirds will have flown here, like the white bird there or the black-footed albatross. But they might also have been blown by the wind. And some birds might have come along on the currents, perhaps sitting on the water. So that's the big W's: wings, wind, and waves. That's how life got started here. It's actually how all life got started here. It's how seeds came, how all of our insects came, our Hawaiian monk seal, Hawaiian hoary bat. They came by some of those three methods. And in the case of the birds, especially the small forest birds, that started an amazing process. So one pair of finches, or maybe a small flock, perhaps a rosy finch or a house finch, got blown to these islands millions of years ago. And from that one ancestor, they evolved into almost 50 different species. And they became the Hawaiian honeycreepers. And way back in time, when the Polynesians first arrived, these honeycreepers would have been all over our islands. But now they're only up in the deep forests where they are protected, places like Koke on Kauai, or some of the higher volcanic areas on the other islands. And they all had incredibly special adaptations. So if you look at the upside down bird there, the EEV, it has a perfectly shaped beak to fit into that lobelia flower. So it evolved to fill special niches. Other birds were generalists, they ate all sorts of things. They became insectivores, bark pickers, and some evolved to eat fruits. They were frugivores and seeds. And that process, that amazing process, is called adaptive radiation. So quest quiz number one, let's see what you've remembered. Our first question is, how did life get here? How did life get to the Hawaiian Islands? They popped up out of nowhere from volcanoes under the sea and land was formed. And then the life arrived through the three W's: wings, wind, and waves. And then what's the name of the process that happened to the first finches after they arrived, when they evolved into all those fantastic different species that fitted different niches? Just like in the Galapagos finches are famous, but Hawaii had way more birds than the Galapagos. That process is called adaptive radiation. Okay, so we found out a little bit about the forest birds, but the birds that I really love here on the Hawaiian Islands, because they're pretty easy to see in most places, are the water birds. So let's find out a little bit more about them. So these birds are probably familiar to you. They are the nene, or the Hawaiian goose. And in the 1950s, they were down to just 50 birds. They're an amazing success story because there's about 3,000, mainly on Kauai now. They were taken to England and they bred really well there. And there was some also bred on the Big Island. And they all contributed to this great success with the Hawaiian goose. And so now you can see these birds in lots of locations or even flying overhead, honking away. And what about this one? You might have seen this bird with its bright red, we call it the frontal shield, on the golf courses maybe, if you look near the water holes. And if you haven't seen one, next time you go to a golf course, have a look. This is the Hawaiian common gallinule, the ale'ula. Oh, wait a minute, get out of here. You are not a water bird. You are an escapee from my son's animation project. Off you go, off you go. Now, this little chap you can also see on the golf courses. It's got a white frontal shield, and it is the Hawaiian coot, the ale'ke'o. And that picture at the top is showing you its incredible lobed feet. It can almost walk on water, or at least it looks like it. And what about these guys? I see these birds at Salt Pond, and I've even seen them in the Hanapepe transfer station when it gets wet. You can see them at Safeway in the big field there, and then in all of our wetlands, they're usually there. This is the Hawaiian stilt, the eel. Now, what about the Hawaiian duck? We all know what a duck looks like, right? Ah, no, wait a minute. You are not a koloa maoli. Get lost. There we go. This is the koloa maoli. Pretty much looks like a mallard, but the males and females look the same and they're a little bit smaller. And we need to keep domestic mallards out of Hawaii so that they don't crossbreed with this very special species. Very.
Hello, my name is Bryn. I'm a master's student at Oregon State University, and my research project is here on Honolulu Refuge studying Hawaiian gallinule. They're an endangered water bird that live in wetland environments.
Woo! Hi, I'm Emily. I'm Bryn's assistant. What we're doing this morning is we're walking back and forth across this beautiful wetland because we're looking for gallinule nests. So if this is a patch of vegetation, you have to look in the vegetation for the nest. It's really cool. It requires a lot of detail. But yeah, science is awesome.
So now we're in the taro kind of complex here, and I found a nest yesterday. I was checking actually a nest right over there, and walked this way and found a nest that's kind of just right in the middle of this unit here. So what we're doing today is just setting up a camera, and we're taking all of the initial measurements. So I'll kind of show you the data sheet before we get too far into it. So the last thing we're doing here before we set the camera is actually trying to determine how old this nest is. So we do that by actually floating an egg. This is a method that's been used by other researchers, and we're kind of developing the key for this species. So what we do is we basically just float an egg in some water, and we see actually if it's going to sink or if it's going to float, and that'll tell us an approximate age of the nest. So I'm only going to take one of these eggs here, and I always try to remember which one, you know, which angle it was at. We take this one, and now I'm going to slowly set it in the water. And Emily's going to get a good photo or a good video of kind of the angle that it's floating at. So I'd say this egg is maybe, it's been incubated for maybe 5 days, and I'm just basing that on the angle at maybe like 40 degrees angle. So I'll just let it dry off for a second. But yeah, you can see these eggs are kind of muddy. Normally the eggs are a little bit whiter, and then the spots are like a dark red. So I'm just going to place this egg back really carefully, just how I found it. There we go. Cool. And then last thing is I'm going to set this camera. So this camera is a trail camera. We've put batteries and an SD card in it. before we got out here. I'm gonna turn it on. And now I have to figure out the best angle to see this nest, which is kind of a tricky one. So basically what we're trying to record is if the nest hatches, when it hatches and how many chicks hatch. If the nest does not hatch, we want to know why, what happened to the nest. So was there a predator that came to the nest, or maybe it was flooded, maybe it was abandoned. Yeah. So we get thousands of images from each camera. It's a lot of fun to review. I think I'm going to go this way.
All right, so quiz number 2, the Remember My Name game. Have you been paying attention? Are you going to remember what these birds are? Let's see. No. You are definitely not supposed to be here. All right, so on the top, we've got the bird with the red frontal shield. Can you remember what its name was? Its English name or its Hawaiian name? Have a think about it. It is the Hawaiian common gallinule, the ale'ula. What about the bird next to it with the white frontal shield? Also found on our golf courses very frequently. That's where you can often see them. That is the Hawaiian coot, the ale'ke'o. Down at the bottom with those long pink legs, that is the Hawaiian stilt, the io. And lastly, it looks like a duck, and it is the Koloa maoli, the Hawaiian duck. Bird quest number 3, bird superheroes. I bet you didn't know that our water birds were actually superheroes. Well, they are. Let me show you how. All right, first of all, we've got the Hawaiian common gallinule, the ale'ula. And this bird was really steeped in Hawaiian mythology. It's thought to be the fire bringer. So when humans first arrived on these islands after that long journey from Polynesia, they're all cold, all wet, and the gods had the fire. And so the ale'ula felt a bit sorry for the humans, and it sneaked up to the god Maui, and that's the representation of Maui there, and it stole fire and gave it to the people. And Maui was so mad. He's supposed to be the trickster god, not the ale'ula, that he branded that bird with a red hot iron, and that's where it got its red frontal shield from. And they have some other pretty special powers. They can build nests that pretty much float on the water, and they were also thought to be a portent of death because they make a pretty eerie call. And then look at those feet. That's how they look like they're walking on water. They're probably just balancing on some underwater vegetation, but they've got those long toes to help them do it. Now, the ale'ke'o, the Hawaiian coot, these guys are kickboxers. So if you get on the wrong side of one of these, they're going to kick you out of their territory. And they build floating nests with a little ramp. But their superpower is kickboxing. So the Hawaiian stilt, it's got those incredibly long legs, the longest legs in the bird world in comparison to body size of any bird except the flamingo. And they are very accomplished actors. That's their superpower. If you disturb them on the nest, they'll kind of draw you away from their nest, and they'll pretend they've got a broken wing. So they'll swing their wing around and make you think that they're injured until you move away from the nest, and then they'll fly away. And they also will sit on a pretend nest so that you think that you're going to be able to get at their eggs and eat their eggs if you were a predator. But secretly, it's just a little patch of mud, and their nest is somewhere else perfectly safe. And they can also create their own air conditioning. So in the nesting season, they go back and forth hundreds of times to the water, wet their belly feathers, and then sit on their eggs, and that keeps the eggs nice and cool. So there they are doing the broken wing display and pretending to sit on a fake nest. And then the Koloa Maoli, I think they have my favorite Hawaiian story. They were the guides to a blind warrior king called Imaikalini, and he could throw 5 arrows at a time in each hand, and even though he was blind, his arrows always hit their target because these cunning birds guided them all the way there. So they were pretty popular in Hawaiian times. And although they look like fairly little birds, they do long journey every day. They can go from the wetlands in the lowlands all the way up. In Kauai, they go all the way up to the Alakai swamp area. And they're only found on certain islands these days. That's Imaikalini. So, quest quiz number 3, bird superheroes. Let's see if you can remember. Who stole fire from the gods? Have a think about it. Somebody whose name means burnt forehead, and that's the Ale'ula, the Hawaiian common gallinule. And who is a great kickboxer? Who was kicking people out of their territory? That was the Ale'ke'o, the Hawaiian coot. Which bird tries to trick you into missing its nest? And if you need a clue, it's got very long legs. That's the Hawaiian stilt. And how many spears did the Koloa duck, the Koloa Maoli, guide for Imaikalini? Well, it was 5 in each hand. 5 and 5, 10 spears. Now, quest number 4. There's a bit of trouble in paradise. So we're going to introduce the troublemakers. Yes, our birds evolved with no mammalian predators. There was nothing to eat you if you were a bird initially in the Hawaiian Islands before people arrived, or pretty much nothing, almost nothing. And then the Polynesians came and they brought rats with them. And then Europeans came and they brought all sorts with them. So these are some of the rats that have arrived on the island, and also the mongoose, which is not on Kauai, but it is on the other islands. And then our feline friend, the cat. There were no cats in the Hawaiian Islands, and they are voracious predators of nests. So you can see on this camera, if you look at the very bottom, this is one of Bryn's trail cameras. You saw her setting it up in the video. At the bottom, you can see some eggs there, and the cat is going for them. And then our wetlands are having a few other problems. We've got mangrove, an invasive species that's taking over. We've had pretty bad flooding, especially in 2018. And there's a nasty disease called botulism, which kills some of our native birds. It's a paralytic disease. And so that's one of the other threats they can face. Now, if people find birds that are in trouble, native birds that are in trouble, they can take them to the Save Our Shearwaters program, and they will help them out, as you'll see in this next video.
Hawaii's water birds can get themselves into all sorts of trouble. When that happens, the SOS program on Kauai is one of the organizations that steps in to help. Molly Bash manages that program. She and the team at SOS have saved hundreds of endangered birds. Here, 2 Koloa duck recuperate at the facility. They both came in with avian botulism, a disease that causes paralysis, or loss of body control and movement in birds. This little duckling also had avian botulism, and it was cared for until it was ready to fly. This coot is gaining the use of her legs again. Check out the amazing adaptations on her feet. They're lobed so that the bird can walk over wet vegetation without sinking. The best part is when Molly and her team get to release the birds. Here goes a Koloa duck. She looks ready to be getting back into the stream, right? And this Hawaiian gallinule is a bit suspicious about its freedom at first, unlike this one. This duck doesn't hang around to say goodbye. Rehabilitating or caring for sick and injured birds is hard work. The patients often need round-the-clock care. That means a lot of laundry, dishes, crate cleaning, and other not-so-fun tasks. But giving a wild animal a second chance at life is worth every part of the job that makes it possible.
All right, so one of the things that we can do to help these birds is to keep our cats indoors. You know, if you have a dog, you don't usually let your dog just run off around the neighborhood, right? We kind of need to think the same way about cats. It's pretty dangerous for cats to be out there in the big, bad world. They get run over, they get diseases. And so the best thing we can do for our native birds and for our cats is to keep them indoors. And keeping predators down saves these little guys, which are pretty super cute. It's all about the babies. All right, quest quiz number 4. The troublemakers. Can you name 4 predators of water birds? Well, if you said cat, you'd be right. Also rats. They can definitely take out our water birds. Mongoose. And sometimes dogs get into the nests as well, and they might take them out. And how can you help prevent cats killing birds? Pretty easy, right? If you have a cat, keep it indoors. That's where cats belong, inside the house. And you can spread the word. You can let other people know that that's where we need to have our cats. We can't have cats outdoors in Kauai. We have a really delicate ecosystem here. What else can you do? Well, you can volunteer to remove invasive species at your local wetland. Most wetlands have work days where you can go and help out. You can prevent pollution from garden pesticides and herbicides. Try and go green in your garden. Help support predator removal through fundraising. You can plant native species. I've been doing that in my garden, trying to plant native species. Keep your cat indoors and your dogs on a leash. And visit a wetland, have fun, see if you can spot some birds there. Okay, so bonus bird, who's this? Do you remember? It's got a burnt forehead from the trickster god Maui. It is the ale'ula, the Hawaiian common gallinule. Long legs, a pretty long beak to be probing around in that mud. It looks like it's on stilts. It is the Hawaiian stilt. And this little cutie with its babies, that is the nene. So our super secret science bird quest is complete. Congratulations. Thanks for flying with us.